I lost that opportunity for myself. It's too late for me. And, she's like, it's my biggest regret in life that I lost that moment for myself. And I did it not for me, but because I thought it was what I had to do to fit in the industry. And it really like broke something open in me. And I really appreciated her honesty in that and thought, okay, like, this is, what do I want for myself? Do I want this? Where am I being dishonest with myself? Is this because I've been brainwashed and, or is it really true that I don't want that for myself? And when I got honest, I did. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know what that was going to look like, and I didn't know if it would end my career or not. And at a certain point, I said, okay, let's just do this and see what happens.
Welcome to Women in Work, the show where we take an inside look at how women are overcoming our own unique challenges as we grow our careers or build a business while nurturing relationships and family. I'm Diane Mocha, founder and CEO of MomSub, the app that connects you to a substitute mom. And I want you to know that work can fit your life. Each week, we meet a woman who has done that. And today, I'm with Tiff Randol. She is the co-founder of Mamas in Music, a nonprofit supporting mothers in the music industry. And she herself is a composer, music producer, and vocal artist. Her work has been in soundtracks for film, TV, and games, and she wrote the song for the closing credits of Percy Jackson's Sea of Monsters. She also identifies as a neurodiverse creator and mother, and she actively works to help other women find the kind of support system she has developed. Because we all need a village, right, Tiff?
Oh yeah, we do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. We know that the music industry can be kind of tough on women, right? There's a lot of women in it, but it can sort of eat them up and spit them out. And sometimes, the industry will benefit from their talent, but not really support them holistically. And so it sounds like you've really overcome a lot of challenges in your life to achieve success in your career. And so I want to start out by asking what you think has been the biggest challenge that you faced, especially in your career, specifically because you are a woman.
Hmm. Sexual harassment? No, no. Yeah, no, really. Yeah, that's been the biggest challenge, I would say.
Wow.
Um, mhm.
In the music industry. So, what we hear, about the Me Too movement and that, things aren't like that anymore. Maybe they're not the way they used to be, but it's still pervasive.
It is. Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely, there's a lot of change happening, and people are much more aware, and it's not happening as often, but it's still happening.
How
Absolutely.
did it affect you? What happened that, made you wake up and go, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm, you know, being manipulated, victimized, whatever here."
Hmm. I mean, it happened in so many layers that I think that, especially at the time when I was coming into the industry, I didn't expect anything different. It's a lot of how I also experienced life prior to being in the music industry as well. And so I think I just looked at surviving it best as I could. I expected it to some degree, was disappointed when it happened, many times, and just dealt with it continuously. But I think that it was after I got married and after, certainly after I had my kiddo, that um, my I felt a different level of safety. I didn't feel, um, you know, as much of that in the space. It's like something shifted in me and something shifted in, who I am in, the world as well. And I think it gave me a lot of different boundaries and perspective and the safety. Like I really think after I got married and had my kiddos, like when I felt the safest in the industry in a strange way.
hmm Did it affect your career trajectory in any way that you thought you were going to work with this person or this company and you were like, that environment is not a safe place for me. And so I'm not going to go in that direction, even if that means bigger opportunities, music on a big label, or, what kinds of doors do you think were shut to you because you put up your boundaries?
Many, many. Um, yeah, it's funny. I was not anticipating sharing about this, so I'm a little at a loss for words. And it's something that I think like most women in the industry have dealt with. Certainly I have. I think there's always that situation where you are going into as a female. Many times I went into situations where I was going there for, music career things, and oftentimes it was mostly men that I was dealing with, and their interests were different. And when those two interests did not coincide, then oftentimes it was not pleasant. So I'm speaking loosely and lightly about it because I'm not even prepared to share about some of those experiences. But it's a common story. I had a wonderful mama and music artist, Maya. What's her last name? Savini. Anyway, she wrote a wonderful editorial for Mamas and Music on our Substack about her experience in this area as well. And she was so vulnerable and open about it, which was really inspiring. So it's a lot of women deal with it, and that's really tough when you look at and you're like, oh, to see other people and male peers not dealing with the same kind of situations, as they continue to have their career collaborations and opportunities and things like that. So, yeah, that's not fun. That's terrible. Um,
Yeah, that could be very frustrating to know that, because of my gender alone, I'm dealing with this issue. It's causing a block of where I want to go. So what kept you going? Why not just say, I could sing, I don't have to be in the industry, you
yeah.
know? Why was it important to you to pursue this and to keep going? And, it takes a lot to get to the point where you're getting the kind of commercial success that you have. Either some incredible luck or a lot of grit and determination.
Yeah, I would say a lot of grit and determination is probably more of it. But I think, I just love music. For me, stories and role play and creating and self-expression have always been the way that I created safe spaces for my own emotions and my own experience in the world, especially growing up. I didn't know that I was neurodivergent growing up, but I often experienced feeling slightly outside of my experience is just different than a lot of other people. So my safe space was always that creativity and that creative expression and music. And it's always been my passion. So I I couldn't really do anything else, I think, just from my spirit. And we just kind of I just keep going. I just keep going. Yeah.
Was it always your goal, even from when you were young, that this is what I'm going to do for my career? I love music, and because some people, say, I don't want to ruin, the passion that I have for this particular area, by having to monetize it and make it into a career. Or was it like, this is the way to express it, to not just keep myself in a room and write some music that maybe I share on SoundCloud now and then, but to actually like pursue this and do this and how? Like how did you know? Did you have parents who introduced you to the right people and did you go to college for it? This doesn't just sort of appear in front of you. It has to happen in the right
Yeah.
way.
I mean, I was always very creative. I did not grow up in a musical family. I mean, I grew up in upstate New York and in the country. So it was really. I was always into moving my body and role play and dancing, theater, musical theater, music, painting. Like I was always very, very creative, writing stories, all of it. And so my parents were really encouraging to me of this when I was young. There's like a, always like a funny, like cute story that we talk about, which was that when I was like 3 and 4, I was up every night in the middle of the night, dancing like naked around my room and painting and, chopping my hair off and blasting records. And my parents were really concerned. So they took me to a child therapist who was like, she's just an artist and a free spirit. Let her like put plastic on the walls, wear earplugs, and let her do her thing. And so, I think this kind of created this pathway for, even though my parents may not have been in the thick of music and industry, they wanted me to be self-expressed, and they wanted to encourage that as much as possible. So they were always, my mom was always there, like supporting me doing, theater and whatever else I was doing. And yeah, I went to NYU when I was like 17 and for music, for classical voice and audio engineering. And then, I became immersed in the New York music scene and, really like my friends and peers grew me and taught me um, and it was really, yeah, it was really amazing to come into that. And no, I didn't always know that I was going to do music. I also thought I would do theater, and painting. But music at the end of the day was the thing that kind of held all of it together for me. And I can bring like visuals and story and theater on the stage and lyrics and self-expression in this way that feels very true, and like so I can continue peeling the layers off of myself really as I evolve through life.
Nice. And so when did you realize that you were neurodivergent, and why is that important for you to
Yeah.
declare in your bio?
Yeah. It was something that I discovered 2 years ago. And so it's fresh for me, and fascinating for me. And makes a lot of my life make sense. And it was something that another mama music shared with me and said, "Hey, I think that you might want to look into this for you," which was really amazing. So, this community, brought me to a little closer to myself in this way as well, to understand how my brain works and why I've, explored music and roles and archetypes and all of the different things, and why I've also experienced life little differently with all of like my sensitivities and sensory stimulation and all of these things. So I like to talk about it openly because there's a lot of stigmas around it. And when it was first brought up to me, I thought I'm no. I think I know what that looks like, and it's not me. And then when I really, started to explore it and sit in with it, it was like, I mean, I just was a waterfall, I guess, for a long time, because I felt like I wish I would have known all along. What could my life have been like had I have known and had these tools to recognize why I got choked up in situations with, sexual harassment or sexual assault, and why I struggled in certain ways, um, that now I can have tools for and recognize. So
Did you get a formal diagnosis? Was that
yeah,
important? And
yeah,
was it difficult because you were an adult? You were a woman, right? You don't fit the mold of what people think of, as someone on the
yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah, and it's also because I'm the mother of of a child who's also on the spectrum, and so I love patterns and I love understanding um, why. This is also just part of what's fun about, I guess, understanding my brain is to know, oh, this is why I'm always looking for patterns in things. This is why, I have to know why things are, and I'm always looking at systems and going, how where's the patterns that, where there's things that are broken, and, scanning them to try and figure out how to fix them, and everything from, you know, my personal life to, community and, the industry, looking at gaps and things, and, you know,
Wow, yeah. Seeing yourself through a new lens
yeah,
that like it gives you clarity and and seeing yourself as a mother even in a new way. Like you
yeah,
said, you have a child that you recognized, and got them diagnosed. And being a mother, of course, in every mother's life is a big part of their life, but you really took that next step of creating a nonprofit, around mothers in music. So is motherhood something that you always knew from when you were young you wanted, or is it something that you were like, well, if it happens, it happens. If not, and how did that evolve in your life where that became something important you wanted to do and then something that you even brought together with your music and created
yeah.
this whole separate entity?
Wow, I love that you asked that. I mean, I certainly love to play a mummy with my animals, and, and everything growing up, but um I think that I so in my 20s I was really like, anti motherhood, and I was like, I will never be a mother, like, and a lot of that was just kind of like toxic energy from the industry, where I was like, where I didn't want, I didn't want people to think that I wasn't serious about my career. And yeah, yeah, and when I became a mother, and finally when I was like, I had a songwriter partner of mine, who said to me one day, she was like, don't don't miss that opportunity if it's something, she's like, I think you want that, and she's like, I can tell that you want that. She's like, I lost that opportunity for myself. It's too late for me. And, she's like, it's my biggest regret in life that I lost that moment for myself. And I did it not for me, but because I thought it was what I had to do to fit in the industry. And that really like broke something open in me. Um, and I really appreciated her honesty in that, and thought, okay, like, this is, what do I want for myself? Do I want this? Where am I being dishonest with myself? Is this because I've been brainwashed, and, or is it really true that I don't want that for myself? And when I got honest, I did. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know what that was going to look like, and I didn't know if it would end my career or not. And at a certain point I said, okay, let's just do this and see what happens. And you know, there were hitches in the career, along the way, but truly, it's been the greatest shift in my creativity, my creative output, the work that I'm doing, the work that I'm doing in the community. It's really made me more present to um, being a much bigger and better version of myself before motherhood, in all the ways. Um, so yeah, I look back at that, and I thought, when I started Mamas and Music, um, that was one of the things where I was like, I don't want other women to feel the way that my songwriting partner does, and I don't want other women that are young women to feel the way I did. Um, you know, it should always be coming from a place of what's right for somebody, and not a pressure from some outside source.
Wow, that's so powerful. that you had these honest conversations. You know, you shared a few that you've had with some different people, and that you wanted to create that support system that you had been finding, you know, for others. So, how old are your kids? Are you married to their dad? You know, is that part
Yeah.
of the picture? And, you know, you said there were some hitches along the way. You know, I think some of the challenges that you could share and how you overcame them of balancing this career, this very demanding career, and then being a mom might help some others to be
Yeah.
prepared or to know what to do when they not sure how to get past a little bump in the road or a big bump in the road.
Yeah. For me, it was my yes, I am married. I have an 8-year-old. Um, and when I had Luca, it was tricky. My husband was traveling for work during the birth, and that was really challenging for me personally.
Is he
And
in the industry?
he's in the film industry. Yeah. So, yeah, so he was on a project. And and then I had also my management team stepped away about 6 weeks after as well. And so I had been building up a project that I was getting ready to release. And after I had Luca, I was like, it was this combination of leading up to Luca, I was like, um, sorry, I realize I'm saying his name, but and I don't know that that I should, but sorry. I leading up to him, I was getting ready to release all of this music, and I was like on the way to the hospital, and I was calling somebody, and I was saying we need to get the video over to the edit because I'm going to the hospital right now, and this was just ridiculous because the minute I had him, my head was blasted sideways, and I couldn't care less for quite some time about anything other than this absolutely life-altering experience of, feeling turned inside out and being with this like amazing human. And Yeah, it's very funny what I thought before and where my head was before. And then um, I think it reminded me of a when you have like a near death experience. And, it's just this wild opportunity for transformation. Um, so during that time, though, I did have like overwhelming joy and overwhelming postpartum and, all of these things going on all at once. And so trying to um, figure out my creativity and my balance and my time. And, we travel a lot for my husband's work. So, Luca was on 3 different continents before the age of 5. Like we lived in 3 different continents. And I was making albums while doing that, and you know, jump-starting Mamas and Music as well. So it's just a lot of wild stuff and challenges during the pandemic. And um, I think the hardest thing for me was trying to find my time balance and get back creatively. And one of the interesting things that opened up for me, because I think more opened up for me than not. Like it might have been a challenge for me emotionally and time, and I was exhausted and feeling very isolated. I think isolation is something that can be really hard for a lot of mothers. And, especially like when I'm traveling all over and not with, a community regularly. But that's part of why we created Mama's Music, was to have this kind of global thread and network. So that community piece and building that was an amazing gift. It was also an amazing gift to like to prioritize differently. When you have a child and your time changes. So all of a sudden, I was really, really specific about, the kind of things I wanted to put my time and attention into. And I feel like that's made me more honest in my work. Um,
So it sounds like before he came along, when you're pregnant and you haven't had your first child yet, you imagine what it's going to be like, but you can't ever really know. And
no.
and you had been probably your whole life juggling lots of projects, good at multitasking. And so
Yeah.
this was like another project. And
Yeah.
then after a child's born, you realize that your North Star in life, at least for, a lot of mothers, like changes. It's like, oh, this isn't just another project. Like the map is different, the whole map is different. And so I wonder as you continue to travel and then pursue your projects because you realize, okay, I can balance these things, but it's going to be a little different or more challenging than I thought. Did he come with you if you had to do projects? How did that evolve? Did you have to have childcare? Did you have to go away for a week and leave him with his dad or with somebody else? And how easy or hard was that to have other people caring for him? And how young was he when you had to be away?
I have been away from my 8-year-old for 5 days.
Oh, so you're like, he is now part of my life where I can do what I'm gonna do and I can have him with me.
Yeah, I mean, we are definitely like very, attached. Like, I think especially kids who are neurodivergent, oftentimes they just require a lot more co-regulation. And, so I mean, he's got, um, we have usually my husband's on projects and he's just not really available. So, when we've traveled with him, a lot of times I've traveled by myself. Like we spent 2 weeks quarantined in a hotel in Australia when he was 2.5, just like me and him during the pandemic, and I've put a lot of times things on hold, to be there for him. And that, that's just been a part of it. It just depends. And I've found ways to make sure that I'm building more time in. And a lot of it is, again, a lot of it is again choosing how I'm spending my time, what I'm spending my time on. I do think I think I've put out at least 3 albums since he's been born and started a global nonprofit. So I think I think we've still been pretty productive. Um, but I've had to find, wise ways to work. Sometimes he's there with me, and sometimes, sometimes I gotta like squeeze it in, and in weird times. And the last 2 years, because like this year my husband was on a project for 7 months, and the year before for 9 months. So I got an au pair for the first time 2 years ago, and just realized like that was, for me, the way that I could find some balance, after, the first 6 years. So, yeah, I think there's other ways that I've been, finding collaborating with people. Collaborating with people is a big one. We talk a lot at Mama's Music about, and lately even more about like buddy systems. How do we, that when we want to be working, whatever's coming up for us, that having somebody else to work with can really be the thing that makes the difference. And then I think also, one of the fun things that happened creatively for me that was completely different was that I got in touch with my love of, instrumental music. And that was partially because, I mean, a lot of times when, creative, writing mothers have, children, they talk about that they're they get kind of creative blocks. And for me, I did really stumble a bit with lyrics. I wrote this one song for him about the birth experience called Holy Now. And that was pretty much the one lyrical song that just felt so natural to come out of me during, the first years. But I was so full of a need to express, creatively all these crazy emotions and things that I was feeling, that it propelled me into instrumental work. And just I put lyrics aside and I started kind of more painting with um, instrumentation and and colors and music, and thinking about music a little differently. It freed something up in me that also pushed forward my production in a way that I had been really, really wanting, it to move into. So it's interesting. You never know how things are going to open you up, and um, and for me, I would say it's opened me up in so many ways. So yeah.
Hmm. So the success that you've achieved, so many people yearn for in the music business. They'll create for years, maybe even, indefinitely without necessarily getting paid for it, right? Because anytime you create, unless you're hired for a project, you don't know, what's going to come out of it. So you said decided to get an au pair, and, so many moms, I think, go through this guilt of, especially when they're not doing a set job, like, okay, I have these hours, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to get paid, and that justifies me paying for childcare. But like you're pursuing a passion, you have a business, you're developing a side hustle, and you need the time to work on it, but you don't necessarily always know what the financial return is going to be. So how difficult was that for you to navigate and say, I'm going to pay some money, and so an au pair is a different way of sort of financially arranging the payment for care, but it costs. How easy was it to kind of make that decision and do that process and find the right person? Did you have to go through a few? And how easy was it emotionally to say, I'm going to spend this money and this time to find this because I need this for me, you know, either emotionally or because I know that my project is going to be successful and there will be financial resources coming back to my family. How did you navigate all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I navigated it, partially because my husband got a job that took him away from 9 months. And, for me, in part, I was like, I I I can't I also homeschool my kid.
Wow. So you need a break. So, everyone needs a break. And so you recognize that, yeah,
Yeah.
you had
So
to
I,
have your
I
own,
just is
yeah.
basically like my he really he needs like a lot of attentiveness, and so for me, when that job came 9 months away, I just said, okay, I was nervous about having somebody live in our home and be in our space, and how to, it's very nerve-wracking to try something like that. And there are challenges about it, and there are great things about it. But I think one of the big pillars for me was also that I just really wanted to have someone else besides me who was also a consistent pillar in their day-to-day life. I felt like that was important for him and his growth, and I mentally for sure, so that I could, really focus on, my things as well. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, and I'm sure in retrospect, you feel it was a good choice.
Yeah, I do. I do. I do. I think it's been really good for him.
You still
He,
have someone who is an au
yeah,
pair in your life?
yeah,
How
yeah.
long have you had the same person?
So this is our second time. So last year we had somebody with us for a year, and she just came to visit, So and then we have our second person who's finishing up the summer, and yeah, it's been great to have the stability, and for me too. I mean, I think I'm also one of these people who in a perfect world, would be very happy in some type of commune eco village, like I would be very, I like to have my own privacy, my own space. And I also really like to have people around that feel like they're part of the village, and community is really important to me. So it's been nice to have that for me too, especially when it's just me and Luca.
Mhm. And it sounds like the desire to create the nonprofit was almost an extension of that. You put in effort to create a community for yourself and others. But it said that you did this in 2019, and if he's 8, that means he was a toddler when you did
He was
this.
we started creating it in, during newborn phase.
Oh my
I was,
gosh.
I was
So
in
that's
this
a lot.
mom
You're
group,
you're still trying to do your music. You're getting used to being a mom. Why then? I mean, you could have had the idea and sort of, put it aside until you had the time and the energy. And, and was it like, oh my gosh, after you started, did you realize, now I'm getting burned out, or maybe I shouldn't have done this? Like, how did you integrate that? Why was it important? Did you build it up to where you could at least get paid for some of the effort or you put in, or was it all volunteer? How did you make that work in your life?
Um, I don't know, I'm loopy. Um, really, I was in mom groups and I just, but I really wanted to connect with others in music specifically because it's just such a particular transition in that industry. So I don't know, I think when I see something that's missing, I'm like, let's do this. And I had no idea what that meant really I didn't quite realize what that would. I was really interested in the community piece of it and the advocacy and the coming together of others. And here we are. We are predominantly all volunteers at the organization. This is one of the things that we're really working on and committed to this year is having a shift around that so that we're able to fund some roles in the organization. But yeah, it's really been like a big hearted love and need to see that change and bring people together. So I experience the burnout of the organ of that piece of it. I do. And what's been really amazing is that this year, I've had some incredible people join the leadership team and board, and it's been really amazing to feel those people also having my back as well. Because it is a lot to hold, as the organ as we've grown and community has grown, there's a lot of things that happen to keep it afloat, and for sure, I didn't quite realize that what that would become when I started it. I really really didn't. But I'm really proud of it. And so, now it's been really nice to have some of the board members and people coming in and saying, hey, like we want to hold space, for you and for this as well here. And, let's shift this into its next phase so that, that there's a thriving, and, there's a lot of things that we want to do for mothers in music and, caregivers in music, that's important to just continue growing it from where it is. And that involves great leadership and it requires, funding and, um, the heart and the community is at the essence of all of it. And then there's all of the other stuff that's around it as well, which is interesting. And it's a newer phase for me. I've always just been like passion and heart and people and not always great at all of the other stuff.
And the parallel you drew is interesting because you talked about how when your son came along, you didn't know. Luca's your a son, right?
Yeah.
His boy. You didn't know, like, like you didn't really anticipate how it would change you, and you birth the child. And when you have an organization that you start and you're a founder, you're birthing that organization. I mean, you're starting from nothing and then something's there, like, and now you're responsible for it. And it's the same kind of thing. And you were like, I didn't really anticipate like how it was gonna
Totally.
need me. So I see the parallels
Yes,
there
very
between
good.
these two. There maybe there's a song there. I don't know. And
Yes.
you also talked about how, one of the things that you wished was that you knew about your neurodiversity, sooner because you've only discovered this in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we always ask our guests if you could go back to an earlier version of yourself, knowing then what you know now, what you would change. So I wonder if that's the thing you would change, and how do you, why? What do you think that would have helped you that maybe you struggled with in life and it didn't have to be that way?
Hmm. Yeah, that would be the thing
It
for
would. Okay,
sure.
I figured that. Yeah.
That would be the thing. So many things. I think I think one of them would just be communication. It's a tricky question. I think there's many things about that that would have helped me. I mean, I think one of the things is tools, honestly, like recognizing um, where I have my skill sets and my strengths and where I have my challenges and, finding ways to support those things instead of just feeling like, oh, why is this thing that seems basic to somebody else a challenge for me? And instead of, beating myself up for that, and constantly trying to fix it. Just knowing that's okay. My superpowers are over here. So I think that would be a big piece of it. And I also think, really understanding that the way I feel the world around me, the environments, lights and sounds and smells and touch and all of these things that were always so often overwhelming or extraordinary to me, um, that oftentimes felt maybe invalidated along the way or kind of snuffed down. Having those validated, tr having that trust in myself, knowing early on, no, that's real for me. I do see those colors when I see music. I do, when I smell things, perfume and, like lay down on a mattress and I need a certain pillow because I feel a texture of something on my skin and all of these things. I certainly was told many times by people around me that, I'm, high maintenance or something like that, and this, I think, is also not uncommon for somebody like myself who was told to really doubt my experience in the world. And I think that created a lack of trust in myself that it took a long time to get back to. And I think my diagnosis gave that for me, going like, no, actually, that's real, and no one can take that from me. And also, that's awesome that I feel and sense all of these things. I've had to learn how to work with it over time. But part of that is recognizing it and going, okay, like I don't want to go into those certain spaces that are triggering for me. So, yeah, I think there's plenty more. I mean, there's even just like we talked about initially around the unexpected topic of sexual harassment in the space. Like knowing how to deal with those situations. I think that would have given me some different tools to know because I always felt slightly awkward in many social experiences. Always. I couldn't always figure out, is somebody being real with me? Is this a joke? Is this, and so uh, a little bit of naivety in a way, I think that I always had, and just not quite sure if somebody's messing about. So I think if I would have known that that is a piece of, of me in that way, that would have given me I would have gotten some tools to know that to be prepared in some of those situations.
It's beautiful that you shared that for yourself and for our listeners, right? And basically to me the message is it's never too late. Because you can't go back in time. You can't change something, but you recognize, what it would have done. Maybe somebody listening who is younger,
Yeah.
can explore and you now have, the knowledge and you can pursue the tools and you can change the next chapter, with this new information. And I thank you so much for all that you talked about today and for telling us where you were comfortable and you weren't. Of course, we only want you to talk about what's comfortable for you, but it really helps others, as I'm sure Mamas in Music does, right? To open up and let others know what you've experienced so they know that they're not alone if they're experiencing the same thing. So I'm sure this is going to be valuable for many people listening to this episode of Women in Work. If you were inspired by today's story, remember to share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe to meet our next amazing guest. If you or anyone you know is struggling to find the right childcare, just submit your criteria and then watch a video interview with the ideal nanny who fits your family at momsub.com. That's momsub, like a substitute mom. Our mission is for you to get the help you need so you can discover what you want in life, pursue it with intensity, and fulfill your dreams, reducing your stress, your guilt, and your self criticism, and increasing your calm, confidence, and clarity along the way. Remember, your career, your choices, and your success are yours to define. So keep pushing boundaries and spreading your love and encouragement to other women who need it.